Okay. All right, you're live.
Hey, good evening, families. Thank you all so much for being here. It's really great to see you. And again, I know that this is a very challenging time of year, but you've decided to be with us and we are appreciative. The last time we met with Dr. Teresa Taylor Williams, who is no stranger to the Greenburgh Central School District, I said to you all that I would issue a survey to find out what would you like to learn more about and what would you like our resident specialists to share with us and to give us expert advice on. You've selected self-care for parents and among other things. And so today I am very happy to bring to you the importance of self-care for parents and guardians during the pandemic. So without any further delay, I give to you our resident psychotherapist, Dr. Teresa Taylor Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. And I'm so happy to be here again with Greenburgh, my family, my homeschool. And I just love presenting to the parents and guardians here at Greenburgh. And so I'm so happy that, Laser, did you lose me?
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
And you can see the screen and see me?
I can, yep.
Okay. So I'm so happy that I've been asked to talk about this topic. Dr. Chase shared with me some of the topics that you were interested in, and I look forward to speaking on those topics. But tonight is truly about self-care. And so what I'd like to do is start with a definition of what self-care is, because some of you might think that it involves leaving your home or going outside and walking away, getting involved in an activity. Under normal circumstances, yes, we might be able to do that. But under the circumstances of COVID-19, we have to try to accommodate our need for self-care right in our home, and it's so easy to do. When I talk to people and I talk to parents about what self-care is, they say, well, I don't have time for self-care. And I ask them, what do you mean by self-care? Well, sitting for hours in a hair salon, or maybe going to play basketball with the guys, or something that involves you actually doing something away from your family. Self-care in this time of COVID-19 means simply, are you taking care of you? And it also involves the basics, which might be surprising to some people. I have parents that come to me in my practice and say, sometimes, Dr. Williams, I don't even comb my hair or brush my teeth between trying to get 2 or 3 children settled into remote learning and then handling my home responsibilities or working from home at the same time. And so I'm going to start with the very basics of what self-care is. And that means, are you eating regularly? I'm a parent too, and I'll stand in the kitchen and I'll make a big meal, but sometimes I'll walk away from it and I won't eat it. And I think that my job is done because I've prepared this meal for my children, but what about me? Sleeping well. We all know that it is so important to get a good night's sleep. Showering, brushing our teeth, washing our hair, doing some kind of exercise, whether it's putting on a pair of sneakers and putting on our protective wear and going for a walk around the block or to the park, or just making sure that we have a step counter, or we have maybe an app on our phone that tells us how many steps we are taking as we go up and down stairs in our home, do our daily routines, and that we have kept moving during the day. For many of you, this could be a good starting point, because you may not be thinking in the same way that self-care is just something very simple, to be mindful of ourselves. And so Due to the changes that the pandemic has brought, and trying to handle all of the responsibilities that good parenting requires, even before COVID-19, parenting takes hours and hours of our time. It means that we have to be selfless and not selfish. And so in trying to be responsible for everything, that e-learning and trying to adapt to changes that have touched all parts of our lives, that's an anxiety-provoking occurrence. The definition of PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, is that you've had a major change or an upheaval in something concerning your life. And those categories are either health, home, economics, change in status, loss of job, changes with your children or loved ones, the loss of a loved one and grieving. And for many, many people, we have not been affected in just one way. COVID-19 has caused many of us to be affected in multiple factors. So some of us may be experiencing all of those factors as we continue to travel this path and this journey and face these challenges. And I want to talk a little bit more about PTSD as it relates to self-care, because PTSD sort of creeps up on us. PTSD means that whatever is happening around us, we are so centrally focused on what we're trying to accomplish that we're not taking care of our mental health. And so little by little, feeling overwhelmed, feeling tired, feeling fatigued, maybe even starting to feel a little hopeless because you're not thinking or feeling like you are doing an absolute great job as a parent, as a caregiver, can cause us to turn those feelings on ourselves. And then we start to feel like we are failing at our task. We're not coming up to the standards that we are so used to coming up with. And so the changes have also brought about many things that had to be juggled. Juggling working from home, trying to find that space where you as a parent or a guardian can do what you need to do to earn a living and keep your job. And I want to also talk to those of you who are teachers and parents. I've had many teachers. I did a workshop for teachers with a school district, and they felt that they were failing in some area. Either they were not giving enough to their students, or they weren't giving enough to their own children at home. So all of those dynamics come together to make the perfect storm and a definition of what PTSD is all about. So it emphasizes what we're talking about tonight, which is the importance of self-care. And what are some of the residuals of trying to handle all that we are trying to do? Well, one, of course, is anxiety. Because if we're not feeling good about our performance, if we're not feeling good about how we're handling all of these changes, and we're getting changes that happen day to day, it's like you get settled into something and then a change occurs. I think back to about maybe a week, almost 2 weeks now, that the New York City school system just could not make a decision whether school was going to close or stay open. And unfortunately, the decision was made, what seems like in minutes, and parents who had gotten into the routine of their children getting up and getting dressed and coming back to some normalcy and attending classes in the New York City school system, in a day, by 3 o'clock that day, at the end of that day, school was closed again. and students were back into home learning. You know, as parents and caregivers, when our children are happy, we're happy. When our children are settled, we feel settled. But as parents and caregivers, how can we feel settled when we're watching our children who we love and want to make everything perfect for experience this unsettledness? So self-care means that we also have to recognize what we are able to control and what we're not. The factors that we can maneuver and manipulate and what we cannot. Decisions that we do have power to make and decisions that we don't. And so I mention that because we have to think about, in this whole scenario of remote learning and COVID-19 and watching our children be juggled around and schools are trying to do the best job that they can, and you're trying to do the best job that you can. We have to recognize what's actually in our hands to control. So let's think about that. What can we actually control? Well, the first thing is what we're talking about tonight, making sure that self-care is one of your focuses, is that it's something that you are going to make important, because you're the captain of the ship. And if the captain goes down, the ship just goes awry. And so I know that you want to give 110% to your children, but if you're not 110%, they won't feel well either. I just mentioned how when we're good because our children are good. But I'm going to reverse that a little bit and say that our children are always watching us. They know when we're sad. They know when we're tired. They know when we're not feeling up to our normal selves. They know when we're not happy. And so our children are not good when we're not good. And that's why we need this balance. So what truly is self-care? As I said, it starts with the basic needs of making sure that you're showering, toileting, taking care of your physical appearance, and that every day when you wake up, you think about you. And I've said this to some parents, and they said, well, Dr. Williams, that sounds like just so selfish. The first thing I'm supposed to think about is my children and what their day is going to be like. And I tried to convince them that I'm not trying to make you a selfish parent or guardian. I'm trying to make you an aware parent and guardian, that you come first. And then you can deliver everything that your child needs during this challenging time. So let's think about some ways that we can engage in self-care. Number one, I'd like to ask you, think about this question. How many of you take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to check into the small things that affect your life? As you go through your day, did you eat breakfast? Did you have lunch today? Let's think about today. How did you sleep last night? And when did you shower last? Answering these simple questions can be a way to ground yourself and take a moment and say, wait a minute. I don't even remember if I ate lunch. Or maybe I stuffed a cracker in my mouth. Maybe I just drank a glass of water. And so when we stop and take this 5-minute little quiz about ourselves, it can certainly make us start to focus inward and think about ourselves. The other important part of self-care is that it will definitely improve how you feel and what your emotional state is about. We have to tend to our emotional needs. And that's one of the key components of self-care. If we're not emotionally well, if we're still struggling with how to manage our anxiety and tackle the day, those are some red flags. And I want to go back to how long you parents and guardians have been in this journey. And I think if we all agree that it was around March, you've been in this a long time. You're survivors of one of the most challenging, confusing upheavals in our country. And if your family is healthy and whole and functioning, and your children have been participating in their studies at Greenburgh, I think you should applaud yourselves, because this has not been an easy time. But we don't know when the end is. And so when you don't know when something is going to finally come to an end, that still provokes anxiety. And that still affects our emotional balance. You know, the brain likes stability. The brain likes routine. The brain likes to know what's happening next. And the brain likes order and control. And we don't have that. But what we do need to remember, as I said before, is to put it on the list of what we do have control over. We do have control over some ordering. We do have controls over how our household runs. And we do have control over how we're taking care of our bodies and our minds. And so when we're attentive to our emotional needs, it allows us to refill the battery. We have an emotional battery. You know, there's a commercial that has a little ever-ready battery that keeps on going. And sometimes moms and caretakers and guardians are just like that. It's like we have a battery that never runs out. And it goes from the time we wake up until the time we go to sleep. And even when we're laying there trying to go to sleep, our mind is thinking about the next day and about what's going to happen with our children the next day. And so we never have time for that battery to just slow down and allow us to rest. You know, for many, taking out any time for your day, from your day, to think about self might seem to be an enormous task, but it's not impossible. So let's talk about physical health and the importance of activity. Many of my clients have said, well, you know, now it's getting cold and I was able to put my mask on and go out for a walk or go and sit in the sun or go in my backyard. What am I supposed to do now? And I said, well, I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing within safety measures, within COVID-19 restrictions. It is so important that we attend to our physical health and our physical activity. You know, one of the great things that I used to enjoy coming up to Greenburgh's campus was to see teachers and students with their sneakers on, walking the beautiful grounds up there on their lunchtime, or teachers coming early in the morning and walking around. It's a beautiful environment. And so that is so important, because as we get physically active and we attend to our physical health, you know, and like former First Lady Michelle Obama had to keep moving, let's get moving. That's my charge to you tonight, you know, to let's get moving. And many of my parents will come back to me and say, okay, when am I supposed to do this? You know, we're doing remote learning from morning to late afternoon. Then I have to do dinner. Then I'm working on the computer. When am I supposed to get moving with my family? Well, whenever you can. And especially for you as as a partner in your household, leading the household, it's so important that you just go out and get some fresh air. You know, we need that vitamin D. We need to stay active. On top of that, we need to hydrate. You know, you take your bottle of water and you go out the door. And if you're only out there for 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes that you went and tried to re-energize yourself. And I guarantee, promise you, it's going to make you feel better. The other thing is that for those of you who might still feel a little guilty about taking some solitary time to yourself, it can be a family activity. Everybody can go out and put their sneakers on and walk around the block and get some exercise. It is so important, especially as it gets darker earlier, and it's going to get colder, and we will still be able to get that exposure. Bundle up and go out the door. For those of you who like to do online classes and exercises, yoga is a great way to relax and to de-stress. And they also have yoga classes that combine parents and children together. And so it's just a time to decompress and de-stress and get quiet and to relax and be attentive to ourselves. Some of you might feel comfortable going to your gym and getting back into that routine, or I know many fitness gyms are offering virtual classes. So if that is available, I would also recommend that you might try that. So what happens on those days where things have just not gone right? Class, your child got up late. The class started and they missed something. You're feeling overwhelmed. You have 2 or 3 children on e-learning. Cable goes out. There's no Wi-Fi. You're trying to do your work. You're working from home. And everything might be just discombobulated all over the place. Breakfast wasn't on time. You don't even have enough food in the house without going out to make lunch. Your routine was just upset and disturbed. What do you do at that point? Well, you try not to rise with the situation. You try not to rise with the condition. What you try to do is just take a deep breath. And if you've been taking advantage of self-care, you won't rise that high. You will take a deep breath and say, I'm not going to let this situation overwhelm me. Sometimes, and I get challenged on this, sometimes a day is just a day that needs to be put a check mark on it. And let's start this all over tomorrow. You know, you are very attentive and very committed parents and guardians. And I don't think there is one educator that would criticize you if one day just didn't go right and you and your children had to pick it up tomorrow. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for those of you who might be very controlling and may start to feel overwhelmed because things did not go right with the e-learning, let's think about how we could repair some of those situations. Well, I talked about things that we can control ourselves. So as caregivers and head of households and guardians, we absolutely can designate where people work. Where do you work in your home? Where is your space? You know, have you given over your desk to one of your children? Did you normally work in the basement? You know, maybe you had a little cubby in the dining room and your space is now gone. I certainly encourage you, as we think about self-care, to find your space again. If it's a little snack table, in the corner of your den. You will join me, who's working from home right now, on a snack table in my den. You know, having our sense of belonging, that this is something that you can't touch. You have created workspaces for all of your children in their home, but you need that space for you. And I encourage parents right now, wherever your workspace may be, to put up little notes, little stickers with encouraging words, with an encouraging statement, with something that you heard. Cut out a photo, because those visuals will help you get through some of those days when you just feel like you can't do it again tomorrow. The other thing that's important with self-care is to designate the difference between where you live and where you relax. And I certainly and especially encourage parents who have young children to have the distinction between their spaces, because it will help them organize. And as your children are more organized, you will have a more organized home and things will be in their place. You know, when I start working with some of my teenagers, the first assignment I give them is to take a picture of their room. Dr. Williams, why should I have to give you a picture of my room? I said, because an organized space is a healthy space, but a disorganized space is an unhealthy space. You can't feel settled. You can't feel at rest when it's time to rest. And so if you are able and you can accommodate, you know, separating living space from relaxing space, and I ask you this question: where's your happy space in your home? Where's the place that makes you just be able to exhale and relax, or curl up with a good book or a magazine, or sit and have a cup of tea? You see, those still are simple things, but those simple things are contributing to your self-care. Well, I can flip through a magazine as I'm watching my children do their e-learning. That's not what I'm saying. And I sip tea all day long. That's not what I'm saying. I want to know where your space is, that when you sit down or you put a wrap on or you put your feet up, everybody knows it's time for mom or grandma or aunties or uncle or grandpa or dad's quiet time. And they will also start to mimic that. You know, children, as I said, they watch what we're doing and they will start to do what we're doing. I want you to not isolate. You know, we've been in this for months now, and some of our routines have become so ingrained that we can't even slip a little bit of time in for ourselves, but we have to navigate that time. And I think it is so important, not only for our children, it's important for you as a caretaker to communicate with others. You know, I was able to have a Zoom call with about 10 or 15 parents that I see, and I work with their children. And one of the most important topics that was brought up was that they feel like they've just been removed from their lives as parents, from other adults. And so I have encouraged them to start Zooms where they just all come with a cup of tea, or they come together on a Saturday evening and everybody has made their favorite dessert, or they have made a meal and they're talking and eating and enjoying it. But at the same time, recognize the importance of the fact that they're communicating. You know, none of us are going through this alone. If anyone gives you the impression that they are being the perfect caretaker or parent or guardian doing during COVID-19, I would challenge that because there was no handbook. What were we going on? We've never experienced this before. I've also been talking to parents who have been telling me that they are getting so much criticism from other parents. Criticism from other parents about the fact that they may have decided to send their children to school and be physically on campus, or to stay at home and do remote learning. And what I say to them is, this is so bad for your mental health, because on top of everything else going on, no one needs to hear the criticism of something that we really don't know what the right answer is. But as a great parent, you're just doing the best that you can. And so if you start to communicate with like-minded parents, you'll feel better because you'll hear some of the trials and tribulations that they went through during the week. And they'll say, oh my gosh, I encountered that too. You mean you encountered the same thing? I did that too. And it brings us together. You can also share stories and tips and tactics on how to get through some of the issues that you might be facing now. And I think it's also important to recognize that we're in a different stage. You know, in the beginning in March, we had no idea where we were going. We didn't know what was going to happen with our children in school. We didn't know what was going to happen with remote learning. But I want you to be encouraged that we are so much further ahead, and we have brought our children so much further ahead at the same time, that we have to recognize that even the smallest mistakes that you think you've made, they've still made it this far successfully. So I'm encouraging you also to have those open conversations, you know, even with your family, even with your children. It's okay, because children can take honesty, and they much rather have honesty than not knowing what's going on. You know, why does mommy or auntie or grandma look sad? You know, why do they look tired all the time? Why does dad look like he's very frustrated? And I encourage families to sit around and review the week. Talk about the remote learning. Talk about how you might feel tired this week. Tell them that, you know what? Mom's going to take a little self-care time on Saturday. I'm just going to take a long hot bath, or I'm going to go for a walk. And then when I come back, let's all go for a walk. But the more you share and the more you communicate, you really will start to feel better, because you'll start to release some of the heaviness and some of the burdens, even some of the guilt that you might have been feeling concerning your effectiveness during this time as a parent. Some other suggestions that even parents I'm working with have made is they've started a text message chain with other parents in the same grade as their children, with friends, you know, who might be doing homeschooling or going through this stressful time and just need to be able to say, I need to send a text and I know who's going to answer me back. Try ending a discussion with small or big wins. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning, even about the small steps towards self-care, of making sure our hair is clean and done, making sure we're changing our clothes every day, making sure that we like the way we look every day, getting that 10-minute walk. And as you look back over the day, or you look back over the week and say, wow, you know what? I got dressed every day today. Even though I'm juggling these children and my work and my balance and all of the things I'm responsible for, I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back because this was a win. Everyone's good. Have some kind words to do self-talk, to encourage yourself. Kind words to say that, you know what, job well done. You know what, Today was a little bit of a mix-up. I'm going to do better tomorrow. I'm going to make this work. Positive self-talk. And when you think of that positive self-talk and those encouraging words, remember, take that little sticky pad and put it somewhere. Put it on the inside of your bedroom closet door. Put it on the inside of your bathroom cabinet. Somewhere that you have to look every day that says, you're great. You're doing a good job. Here's what else. Put a little question on there and say, did you walk yesterday? How many times did you exercise? That will keep you aware of what you're doing about self-care. And then I'm all for rewards. You know, at the end of the week, my children and I come together and Friday night is pizza night, no matter what. And if you have your favorite meal, or you gather and have a movie, but remember self-care. I want you to find a movie for yourself. I want you to find a good book for yourself. And at the end of the week, or on a Sunday afternoon, take that little block of time and reward yourself. Reward yourself at the end of the day for a great day of your children with e-learning and you met all of your responsibilities. But also at the end of the week, a great week ending for your family. And I know, I'm not trying to write a fairy tale here. This is an extremely hard time, mentally exhausting time. You know, people who in your own household, I'm sure, either you know someone who's lost their life to COVID or someone very close to you has. So I'm not trying to paint a picture that's rosy and unrealistic, because we do have to recognize that this is a time that has pushed many of us to the limit. But what I am trying to say is even through the journey that's dark and that's scary and that's been very sad for a lot of us, loss of job, not being able to meet all of our financial needs, not knowing what our stability as far as our profession is concerned. We need to also remember that there is hope. And when we come through on the other side, we want to be mentally strong. And that's why I'm talking about self-care tonight. You know, fear and uncertainty breeds when we are just sequestered, when we're feeling trapped. And during that time, we're trying so hard to, how do we find that sense of calm? Well, your children can definitely feel calmer when they feel safe and when they have their healthy routines. And when you recognize your emotions and behavior, but you're also very attentive to their emotions and behavior, which is so important, because part of our own self-care is to be cognizant of the emotions and behavior around us. We can't ignore it. And once we are attentive to the emotions and behavior or upheavals that might be going on with our spouse or our elders or our children, then our emotional balance will also improve. So for families to try to, keep routines to reduce stress, I want to re-emphasize to keep healthy routines. And part of that is maintaining bedtime and other routines. There's a time to eat, there's a time for breakfast, there's a time for lunch, there's a time for dinner, there's a time for TV or social media, and then there's a time for bed. The goal is to have a well-oiled machine where everyone knows what they're doing at all times, as close as we can get to that. And let's remember, these are all tries. This is not perfection. These are things that we are trying to accomplish. And a good try is worth so much. Create a sense of order to the day that reassures as much as the uncertainty is diminishing, that we can encourage our children and even ourselves to feel more certain, to feel more reassured in keeping these healthy routines. And every child, no matter what age, can benefit from these routines. But how does that affect parents' self-care? Well, it affects parents' self-care because we have to be flexible. And we have to understand that we want stringent routines. We want to keep good rules of behavior and work ethic in the household, but everyone's an individual. And we can't predict every glitch that's going to happen, like the Wi-Fi going out, like trying to reach one of your children's teachers at school because you have pressing questions. Take a deep breath, and what you can't reach today, you will achieve tomorrow. And again, I reemphasize, structuring the day with as many routines as you can, but incorporating flexibility also. I also work with parents on timing and encouraging them to do something about breaking up the schoolwork whenever possible. I talked to a parent one day and they said, well, I make my child there in school from 8 a.m. until 5:30 in the evening. Now, I question that because I know that a great school district, and this was not Greenburgh, but a great school district with great leadership would not require a young child in elementary school to work from 8 a.m. until 5:30 in the evening. You have to also, in order to have your good self-care and not watch your child suffer, and you and your child engage in arguing or stressful conversations, or you continuing to question them about how much work they've done or why they're not looking at the computer screen, you have to use common sense. And you also have to be the person who makes the decision, because the teachers, they're trying to do a great job. They're trying to provide the work. But you are the one who has your eyes on your child at home, for those of you who are doing this remote learning. And so you have to also make sure that, just like part of your self-care is to communicate and engage with your peers, it's important that your child has some online social time and to be able to communicate with friends and separate the end of school at home and then homework time and then social time. As far as our self-care is concerned, and in doing this, it will reinforce that everyone is getting all of the needs that we need met: our socialization, our emotional needs, our learning or work time, all met evenly. The other thing that I want to bring up is, when I spoke about positive words for self-care, I also would like you to share that positivity with your children, because even when we are speaking positive words, it brings our stress level down. Instead of saying, oh my God, how could you not have completed that assignment today? We can turn those words around and say, I know you did your best effort today. Either number one, can I help you with something? And maybe we work together on it. Number two, would you like me to reach out to your teacher and get some better information for you? Or number three, would you like to reach out to your teacher and talk about how the day's work did not go well? And, for parents who are really, really feeling stressed and overwhelmed, now we're moving into a different category. So I'm going to ask you to be attentive to why you're feeling so stressed and why you're feeling so overwhelmed, and examine and identify exactly what's setting you off. Is it something that's being created by your responsibilities to the school or to your child? Is it work related? Is it behavioral issues with your children? And sometimes we don't know. But sometimes the answer is also, if it's not concerning injury or harm, walk away. Walk away for a few minutes. Think about your self-care. Is it better to get upset and to get angry and continue to express that anger to your children, not knowing why you're upset? And you know what? Sometimes we can't pinpoint why, because as we're going through this pandemic and through COVID, thoughts come rushing. You may be thinking about the future and how much longer is this going to go on. You may have just watched a news program and it's raised your level of anxiety. That's why I'm asking you to be self-aware with not only self-care, but to be self-aware. My suggestion, if that happens, is to do something that calms you down. Put on a good movie, go take a long shower, text with a friend, divert yourself, start to cook a meal. All of those things will start to bring your stress level down. And guess what? We eliminated having an altercation with our child or bringing out anger on our child that may not have even deserved it. Call a friend or a family member and vent and get those feelings out. And as we wrap up, I want to engage parents and caretakers to remember the positive self-talk. It's good for you. It's good to give yourself a pep talk and a pat on the back. Of course, spending quality time together can also be a part of our self-care, because I know when I'm surrounded with my children and we've engaged in conversation or we've watched something silly on TV, it makes me feel like I'm good. And that is part of self-care also. If you've tried so many of these things and you don't think it's worked, or you don't feel like you're getting better, or even if you feel like, this is overwhelming, I can't handle giving myself self-care. I don't know how to get organized again. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I don't feel like everything is going the way it should. Then definitely consider professional help. It doesn't mean that you need mental health assistance, but maybe just talking to someone can help you refocus and take some of the stress off. And a professional will be able to do that. I encourage you to do that before you get to a point where you feel you're completely overwhelmed and you have gone too far. So as I wrap up, I want to remind you of a couple of things. Don't be so hard on yourself. Great parents are doing a great job. You're doing the best that you can. Remember that meditation with a good hot cup of tea that's relaxing and warm. I also suggest 2 great apps, and there are many online. But one is Calm and the other is Headspace. And when you feel like you're just raging and the anxiety is building up, sometimes that can help. You hit that app and you'll hear the rain falling or the water trickling, and it starts to bring our stress level down. And finally, don't neglect yourself. You are important. This really, for so many reasons, is all about you as the parent and the caretaker. And remember, you are the parent first. You're not the teacher. You're the parent, and your child is looking for you to still be the parent, to still be able to be that person to listen when they need an ear, to give them a big warm hug when they need to nuzzle up, to talk them through and to talk them down and to encourage them with positive talk. And I like to end by this little saying I found. It says, "Do not give from the depths of your well, but from your overflow." When we're on empty, what can we give to others? But when we are full, we have so much that we can give. Greenburgh, it's been my pleasure to speak to you tonight. I hope that I have been able to give you some tips And as always, I look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So at this particular time, I believe, Dr. Williams, you may have a couple of minutes for any questions from our parents who have been extremely attentive. I must say that I heard a little bit of myself as a mom in your talk this evening. So I thank you for sharing. If there are any questions, now is the time and the opportunity. Oh, don't be so shy, parents. This is not a shy group. I'm looking at these names. This is not a shy group.
Well, Dr. Williams, I just want to say thank you. As a school social worker and as well as a parent, your words have been very encouraging, uplifting, and motivational. And I really enjoy the part about self-care. You know, in the field that we are in, you know, we are always running 24/8. So to take that time for ourselves and to hear you say that was very encouraging. So I want to thank you and wish you a happy holiday as well. And I want to thank you, Dr. Chase, for organizing this again.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. I don't know if you know that I remember you up there, but I know you do an amazing job. And I know that those kids look to you, and not only the kids, but also the staff. And like you say, you are on 24/7, 24/8 is what you said. And I wish you a happy holiday also.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Dr. Williams, you are 100% right. You do remember him. He is also our illustrious leader of our My Brother's Keeper program.
Yes.
He has his hand in so many different amazing initiatives. So Mr. Gaines is a busy man and a busy dad and a busy husband and a busy coach. So we appreciate all that he does for the Greenburgh Central School District. Are there any other questions? Okay. Lasers, anything in the chat?
No questions in the chat.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, I just want to again thank our families and parents and caregivers and those who are just interested to just hear this awesome talk on self-care. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope that we were able to jot down some takeaways, and not just jot down takeaways, but to apply them to our lives. You know, the holiday season allows us a great opportunity to reflect on self-care and what that means. I encouraged a group today, I spoke with a group of administrators to step away from the computer during the break, enjoy your families, take some time for yourself, restore, rejuvenate, reflect, refocus. These things are really important to not only our mental capacity, but it's also important to how we move about on our daily activities during our work, and also how we care for our families. You know, when you're on an airplane, you're always encouraged, right, to put, if the plane has an emergency, to put your mask on first and then to help others. There's a reason why. We have to take better care of ourselves, and I should take my own advice as well. Families, we wish you a very happy holiday. We wish you all the best. We ask that you please hold on to the promises and to strong hope that 2021 will bring peace on this earth and will give us what we need to rid this planet of this horrific virus that has really turned our worlds upside down and made us conform to this new normal. Whatever it is that you do, we ask that you do it safely and responsibly. And I just want to thank you all again for your unwavering support of the Greenburgh Central School District. Our district would not be what it is without your support. So I thank you. Be well, everyone. Have a good one.
Good night.
Yes. And if I don't see you guys tomorrow, I will see you in the next year.
Have a good night, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Thank you so much.